some funny reasons, yours is faint at my end here, but I hope since everybody can hear me loud and clear, I'll just proceed. A very good afternoon, good morning, good evening to everyone who has joined this weekend health talk. Depending on where you've joined from, it may be good morning, maybe good afternoon, it may be good evening. Today, I'm going to tackle a very interesting topic, diet and non-communicable diseases, changing patterns of consumption in Ghana. The current trend in Ghana, where the attention is shifting to certain lifestyle, dietary lifestyle and consumption. I'm going to make this very interesting as much as possible. I'm going to make it interactive. I hope everybody who has joined will be able to also share with me ideas, because when it gets to a point, I'll be asking for your opinion and your ideas or thoughts about it. So without much ado, we will start talking about the first item in the topic, diet. Okay. When we say diet, usually people use these terms interchangeably. Diet, food, meal. Usually people use this term interchangeably, but they have some slight difference, between them. So basically, when you say diet, you are talking about, in nutrition terms, a sum of food that is consumed by a person. Okay, so that is a diet. So a sum of food consumed by a person. So you can have a number of food, okay, consumed by a person, and this can be classified as diet. Now, that takes us to the next, definition of another topic to discuss, that is food. So when you talk about food, basically you're talking about substances that you combine, okay, and they are essentially made from proteins, carbohydrates, fats, and other micronutrients, okay, consumed by an organism to grow and sustain life. So foods are individual, items or substances. So it's not a complex substance. So if you look at the picture below, you can see fish, you can see avocado. The fish on itself is food. Avocado on itself is food. You can see some apple on itself is food, and cabbage on itself too is food. All right. Okay. So let's look at the next slide. All right. So the next one I would like to talk about is, please hold on. Right, sorry about that. So the next one I'll talk about is meal. You've seen what food is, you've seen what diet is. Now the next one is meal. When we say meal, what is it? Basically, meal is an act or the time of eating a portion of food to satisfy hunger. Okay, so you can use it in some terms like, let's have a meal together. All right, you can say, let's have a meal tonight. Okay, so a meal is basically what you eat at a particular time, okay, of the day to satisfy hunger. All right, meals are mostly eaten at breakfast, lunch, and dinner. So you can have meals with your family, you can have meals with your friends, you can have meals with colleagues at work, and these are terms that are used interchangeably. I took time to go through these terms for us to clarify them and understand. Whilst we proceed, I may also use them interchangeably. However, I hope we understand the difference. Next slide, please. Okay, so now we would like to talk about why we eat. Okay, why we eat. Why do we eat? Why do human beings need food? If you don't eat, what will happen to you? All right, why is food so important? So the first thing that comes to mind when we talk about food or eating is the fact that it helps us obtain energy, okay, for peak performance. So if you look at somebody who has eaten, okay, at the workplace in the morning versus someone who has not eaten at the workplace in the morning. Usually people who eat breakfast, okay, at the workplace, or people who eat breakfast before going to work, tend to have high, mental alertness and focus, and they're able to perform at a top level compared to those who do not eat breakfast, before going to work. They tend to become very slow, grumpy, lightheaded, and these are some of the reasons why we eat. So for energy, also you eat for nutrients, okay, for growth. Without nutrients, you can't grow. All right. So food is very important for the nutrients for growth. Also, we need nutrients. We eat to get nutrients to prevent and fight diseases. All right. So this is also another important reason why we eat. Can one say they won't eat? Can you say that you won't eat when you wake up in the morning? You won't eat afternoon, evening for no reason? No. I mean, if you decide not to eat, there are consequences, and some of them I've mentioned earlier. Let's like it. All right. So I talked about it earlier that when we eat, we obtain nutrients. All right. So nutrients are basically the things or the substances that we obtain from the food that we eat. And this is a list or a couple of them that you can have a look at. There's recently an added one known as the dietary fiber, which I didn't capture here, but it's a very important component of our food. So you have the carbohydrates, protein, fat, vitamins, minerals, and then water, right? And these are very important. They are classified into two types. That is the macronutrients and then the micronutrients. So I'll talk about the macronutrients and what they do, right? So the role of the macronutrients is to, one, for carbohydrates to produce energy, all right? So the energy currency of the body is glucose, all right? And we obtain glucose from eating carbohydrate-rich food. Nobody can get, decide not to eat carbohydrates in their meals and have, that glucose that we are looking for, unless for extreme cases. Also, the other component of macronutrients that we are looking at is fat, and this can be used for energy as well. All right, so fats are very important. They are used for energy. It can be broken down into fatty acids. They can be used for energy production, and also very important component of our diet. Same as protein. Protein is mostly used for enzymes production, hormones, synthesis of muscles and other protein substances. So this is it for the macromolecules. Now let's look at the micromolecules. And these are substances that are needed in small quantities in the body. All right, they are needed by the body in small amounts. However, they are very important. People think that sometimes the fact that they are needed in small quantities mean that you can forfeit them. It doesn't work like that. Even though they are needed in small quantity, the body really depends on it for some metabolic processes. All right, and if you don't have these micronutrients in your body, some of these metabolic processes will be a challenge. Now, we've spoken about diet, we've spoken about meals, we've spoken about food, we've linked them to the nutrients and the role the nutrients plays in the body and why they are very important. Now let's talk about the second aspect of the topic, non-communicable diseases. All right, so what are they? Basically, non-communicable diseases are diseases that are not spread through infection or through other people, but typically caused by a combination of genetic, physiological, environmental, and behavioral factors. So, for instance, COVID, when COVID came and we were all over the place, you saw the situation, right? So, people were quarantined because they can pass the COVID virus to another person, the coronavirus to another person. Non-communicable disease does not work like that. You cannot pass it on from one person to another. So by WHO report, these are the four types of non-communicable diseases that account for over two-thirds of death globally. And they are cardiovascular diseases, cancer, diabetes, and respiratory diseases. I'll touch on a few of them and then we proceed. So let's start with cardiovascular diseases. What are they? When you say cardiovascular disease, you are talking about a group of disorder that affects the heart and the blood vessels. So you can have hypertension, you can have stroke, you can have atherosclerosis, you can have angina, and the rest. If you look at the cardiovascular system on itself, it's a group of organs coming together to form the system that helps pump blood from one point to other points of the body to and fro. So it pumps and then collects blood back to the heart. And why is this important? It's important to help distribute the nutrients that we obtain from the food that we eat, which I mentioned earlier. It's very important for nutrients to reach all those parts of the body. And that's the reason why the cardiovascular system is very important. All right. Now, let's talk about some prevalence of cardiovascular disease in Ghana and globally. So we start with globally. It's known as the #1 leading cause of death. And this is no brainer at all. It's obvious. A lot of people these days present with one form of cardiovascular disease or the other at the hospitals. They are also called silent killers because a lot of times people do not even see this coming. I mean, the symptoms and the risk associated with cardiovascular disease, they don't see it coming before they realize they have a condition that they have to be rushed to the hospital, before they realize they are unconscious. And therefore, cardiovascular disease are ranked as or known as silent killers. They are also estimated, an estimated 17.7 million people died from cardiovascular disease in 2015, representing 31% of all global death. Also, it is estimated that about 20 million people in Africa region have cardiovascular disease. And in Ghana, there is a perceived rise in cardiovascular disease cases. Those days in the past, when people have cardiovascular disease, especially hypertension, these are people who are working, working class, people going on retirement. So these individuals who have worked for over 30 years going on retirement, age 60 years going on retirement. And mostly they go home with all these kind of conditions. But these days, that's not the story anymore. Now, young guys as young as 25 years, 23 years, 20 years, 18 years, 30 years, 32 years, 35 years, all have some sort of cardiovascular disease. And that's the reason why we need to talk about this. It's very important. These are future leaders. These are breadwinners. These are people who have, dependents. And therefore, we need to really address the issue of cardiovascular disease. Now, cardiovascular disease is not the only thing that is causing problems for individuals in Ghana globally. Also, there is diabetes. These days, every household you go, if it's not diabetes, it's hypertension. If it's not hypertension, it's stroke, and diabetes has become a problem these days. The number of people with diabetes rose from 108 million in 1908 to 422 million in 2014. All right, the prevalence has been rising more than in the other countries. So this is a concern. Ghana falls here. Ghana is a low middle income country, and therefore it's a concern for us. And between 2000 and 2016, there was 5% increase in premature death from diabetes. In 2019, diabetes was the 9th leading cause of death, with an estimated 1.5 million deaths directly caused by diabetes. This is a report from WHO, and the numbers are not, good at all. The numbers are very frightening, and therefore we need to take our health very serious. Now, who is at risk? Who is at risk of non-communicable disease? Who is at risk? It's mostly found in all individuals, actually, but individuals who are at most risk are people who are eating unhealthy diets, people who are physically inactive, people who have high cholesterol, and then people who abuse alcohol. There are other, factors, risk factors, which as we proceed, you realize there's also overweight and obesity, which is another pandemic, since the 90s. It has become an issue, a global issue for concern. So at this moment, I'll take a quick break for us to do this quick assignment. All right. Take your calculators. Let's do a quick assignment. As I mentioned earlier on, that BMI, overweight and obesity is a concern. And I want us to be able to calculate our BMI to know your nutritional status, whether you are overweight, whether you are obese, whether you are normal weight or underweight. You need to know. So I'll quickly give the formula for the calculation of BMI, which is the determinant for your nutritional status. That will be your weight. So if you know your current weight, maybe you've been to the hospital or you've gone for some medical checkup and you checked your weight. All right, write that one down. So in my case, my weight is 65 kg. All right, so I'll use mine as an example, 65 kg. And then the height is mostly converted into centimeters. So if you know it in feet, please convert it into centimeters. For people who are about 5 feet, 5 inches, that will be about 166 centimeters. All right. And then we convert it to meters. So that would be 1.66 meters. That is from centimeters to meters. All right. 1.66. So now you multiply, you square your height. That is 1.66 times 1.66. Okay. 1.66 squared, or 1.66 times 1.66. The result you get, you divide it by the weight. Okay, so your weight divided by the results you get from squaring your height, and that will be your BMI. Kindly write it down nicely somewhere. We'll come back to it. And then you look at the table and compare it to where you stand. We'll come back to it. So many times I get this, and surprisingly, I don't know how individuals at the left side, if you look at the picture, okay, kindly put it in the chat box or comment section what you think about these two pictures, diagrams. Okay, put it in the chat section or comment section what you think about these two pictures. So a lot of times I get this a lot because people who are on the left side are really considered well-to-do people who life is treating them well. Okay, so funny enough, those on the right-hand side are those who are classified as struggling, people who are stressed, people who are not doing well, people who are sick. Okay, so funny enough, those on the left side do not feel the need and urgency to even do anything about the situation. Thank you very much, Margaret. So Margaret says that the first woman on the left is obese. Okay, so that is very true. And then the one on the right looks like a normal weight for me. Okay, next slide, please. Same as this one. Okay, so for the men too, this is the kind of classification you see. So on the left is Oga, who is, doing very well in life, and that is showing on his stomach or his abdomen. And then the other guy on the right hand side is also, just in there. And Oga is actually the guy who is supposed to come for medical checkup and do something about his nutritional status, but unfortunately, he won't do anything because he's doing extremely well. Now, let's proceed and talk about the third component of the topic, that is changing patterns of dietary consumption in Ghana. Okay, changing patterns of dietary consumption in Ghana. So in sub-Saharan Africa, and particularly in West Africa population, aging and rapid urbanization are associated with lifestyle changes, as simple as that, okay, including diet, contributing to the emergence of metabolic disease. So I highlighted diet to put or bring attention to it, that diet is part of lifestyle changes, which is brought by urbanization or rapid urbanization and aging. The next one is dietary changes in low and middle income countries from a more traditional to westernized diet are universally termed as nutrition transition. So many a time people have a typical lifestyle of eating or way of eating or a pattern of eating. When they come to, the urban lifestyle, the urban transition, mostly they tend to copy, adapt to the new way of eating, the urban style. And that process, okay, of changing your diet due to urbanization, due to where you find yourself, okay, is known as the nutrition transition. So for dietary pattern analysis, mostly they are useful in understanding overall diet of a population, okay, or a group of people and its relationship with disease condition. So it's very important to understand that if you get to understand the dietary pattern of a group of people, okay, living in a specific geographical area, it helps you understand their, dietary intake. It helps you understand their way of life in terms of dietary consumption. And this can be related to disease condition that can affect this group of people. Now, here are some Ghanaian tribes. I use just a few examples here. We have the Ewe, we have the Ashanti, we have the Fanti, Ga, Dangwe. Kindly share with me in the comment section what their dietary consumption pattern are, or what dietary consumption pattern are they associated with. Kindly share with me in the comment section. Dr. Asidia, please let's stay with the previous slide. Thank you. Kindly share with me. If you mention Ashantis, what kind of dietary lifestyle are they associated? What do you think Ashantis do? Or what kind of food do you think Ashantis like to eat? Or Fantis, or Ga Dangbe, or the Dagombes, or the Ewes? If you know any dietary, okay, so I have something here, Fufu. So Fufu associated with which ethnic group or tribe? Okay, so Margaret Kwegu says Banku and okra soup. Yes, that is absolutely. I mean, if you don't mention Banku and okra soup, I mean, I would have been very upset with you. We have the akple or okple. Yes, that one too. It's either Banku. Yes, akple or agbodi with agbodi. Hey, thank you very much. I couldn't pronounce that one. Is there any other? Nobody is talking about the fancies. What food item is associated with the fancies? Kindly share with me. I want that for the fancies, then I'll proceed. Or fancies, they don't have any dietary part. Okay, so fried. All right, so I get fried rice here. I don't know how true that is, but I know fancies like something, more traditional, like fante with ethyl. Okay, that's another style or another form of banku. So yeah, next slide, please. Yeah, so still on the changing patterns of dietary consumption in Ghana, the major staples consumed or grown in most parts of West Africa, including Ghana, are maize, yam, plantain, cassava. We have some potato in there, we have some cocoyam in there, but these are the main major ones, okay, which you find almost everywhere at every food eatery, local food service joint, or anywhere. And these are mostly eaten with stew, sauces, or soups, okay? Or they are also used in making porridge. So these are mostly the staple foods that we find in Ghana. So that's another typical example. We have them here in pictures. Let me know which one is your favorite. All right, so over the years, the introduction of rice, okay, and I see I didn't mention rice in the previous slide. Over the years, the introduction of rice and other cereal cultivation in most parts of Ghana resulted in increased grain consumption. All right. So Ghanaians are now cultivating rice, local production of rice, and also the foreign importation or the importation of rice from other countries. That one has, I know that one is has a greater chunk compared to the ones that is produced locally. So typically, Ghanaian meals are giving way to the continental, westernized Asian alternatives. And here is why. So this is due to inconvenient cooking methods, okay, associated with making typical local Ghanaian food. All right. So it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of, you must have the skill and a technique in order to be able to prepare typical Ghanaian food. All right. Otherwise, you end up with something else, maybe a concoction for that matter. All right. So also, these meals are special handling, okay, are specially handled when not eaten immediately. For some reasons, if you take foods like gari, keke, banku, which have, a longer shelf life, somehow the sources we used to eat with them, when you get to a fast-paced, urban area or people living in the urban area, this becomes so cumbersome to carry around, especially if you don't have your own source of transportation and you have to join, public transport. This becomes so difficult to carry around. And therefore, people do not want to carry this kind of food to work or to places where they can, eat them comfortably, because it's very tedious, it's very bulky, it's very difficult to carry, and therefore people tend to switch to other forms of food which is easier to All right. Now, this situation is creating prepackaged foods. Such as sandwich you eat, all you do is you warm water, you put it in the container, and then your noodles is ready. You start consuming it with your fork or your chopsticks. Okay. Also, the demand for such foods also is also driven by prestige, particularly among middle and high income population. So here's the changing trend. All right. People who can afford these kind of foods have, for some reason, it looks prestigious to acquire these foods. And therefore, the trend is shifting because these days a lot of people are, in this categorization of middle and high income people. And therefore, the patronage of these sandwiches, burgers, fries is on the rise or on the increase. Here is the link. My very good friend, like he says, from ampesi to fries. From ampesi to fries. Maybe can we have a typical Ghanaian type of fries? Maybe the future will tell. Most of these fast foods either are high in refined carbohydrates, saturated fats, or sodium or monosodium glutamate. All these are associated with non-communicable disease. As simple as that. This is no brainer. If you are eating too much refined carbohydrates more than your body needs or your body requires, if you are consuming too much saturated fats, if you are eating too much sodium, all right? If you are eating too much artificial spices where you get the MSG from, then you are at risk of developing these non-communicable diseases. So that being said, what are we preaching? We are preaching that instead of consuming food that way, the way that will put your health at risk, rather switch to a healthy style of eating, what we call healthy eating. The cornerstone of a healthy diet should be to replace heavily processed food with real or unprocessed food. Okay, when I say real, I mean food that hasn't gone through the mill or hasn't gone through heavy processes to change it from one form to another. A complete change. Also, to eat a varied diet consisting of whole grains and cereals, lean proteins, saturated fats, low sodium diets, legumes, seeds and nuts, fruits and vegetables, eggs, and low-fat dairy products. Now, if you include any of these combinations in your diet, chances are that you will be on your way to healthy eating. Now, let's proceed. This is one of my favorite, easiest way to put you on the spot if you want to think of healthy eating. This is one of my favorites. And it's my favorite for a reason, yeah? It's easy for individuals to get this. It's very simple. It's very, very easy. Even a class 1 preschool boy can get this. Now, the bowl we eat from, the plate we eat from, kindly draw it on a piece of paper if you have one. Divide it into two. Then we have 2 equal parts. So we have half and then another half. And then you further divide one of the halves into 2 again. So you have a quarter each. Now you are saying that half of your food should consist of fruits and vegetables if you want to eat healthy. On your plate, on your bowl, half of the food should consist of what? Fruits and vegetables. The other half, which is divided into 2, which we have a quarter each, one of the quarters should be your carbohydrates, complex carbohydrates. And then the other quarter is your protein. And by protein, we mean lean protein, not the fatty, protein that comes with a lot of saturated fat. Okay, so this is an easy, simple guide, which if you have it at the back of your mind, trust me, your healthy eating, agenda will be of good cause. To be able to eat healthy, you need to plan and figure your meals. What do you do? Okay, how do you go about it? The goal is to understand the concept of meal prepping. Meal prepping is a whole syllabus on its own. It's a big deal. It's a whole agenda. So for you to be able to understand the concept of healthy eating, okay, you need to also understand the concept of meal prepping. Now, what is meal prepping? Meal prepping basically means that knowing what you want to eat and making the right provision for it before or ahead of time, before your meal time or ahead of your meal time, just so you will be found wanting when it is time for you to eat. So a lot of people wake up in the morning, take their bath, sit in their car, go to work, and then when they get to workplace, that is when they start thinking, oh, so what am I going to eat now? That's when they start putting their head together. What am I going to eat now? this person has failed from the onset in terms of planning your meals, okay, this person will end up consuming something that they are not supposed to eat. And that is where it all starts to fail, or it starts to go downhill. Secondly, you need to understand the concept of packaging and serving the food. Some people actually have wonderful food served or cooked in the house, but they don't have the knowledge of how to package them into convenient, containers to work, or to places where they can easily sit comfortably and eat them later in the day. And that can contribute to, your healthy eating agenda or goal. So to cap it off, I would say there are some things to avoid when you are trying to eat healthy. And this one, a lot of people are culprits. One is to avoid eating in between meals. There are some people, after they eat, they don't seem to get, they don't seem to have any control over their meal time or what goes into their mouth at what particular time of the day. Once they finish eating their first meal of the day, breakfast, if something is passing by and they can reach it, they will reach it and buy some or order some and eat. If a colleague is sitting by them eating their food, they will try and get some finger food from there and eat. These people are people who are found to be eating in between meals. Also, to avoid comfort, there are some people when they are sad, that is when they eat. They use food to comfort themselves. That is what we mean by comfort eating. So when they are sad, you find them eating all sorts of food. They will eat and eat and eat so they feel better. That one too can cause problems for you if you are trying to eat healthy. The next one is to avoid starvation. Like I said earlier, some people will sit for hours without eating breakfast, and they think there's nothing wrong with it. Today, you won't feel the consequences, but tomorrow you pay a hefty price for it, because breakfast, like I said, and I've always said this, is the most important meal of the day. And therefore, if you skip breakfast, your chances of breaking down stored fats, okay, is high. To produce energy for you is high. Unfortunately, the pathway with which the body does that ends up increasing your LDL cholesterol level. And that is where you are prone to or having what we call dyslipidemia or hyperlipidemia. Your cholesterol level, the bad one, will go up, and you do not want that. Also, if you want to eat healthy, please again, avoid binge eating. Some people, they don't have shame at all. When they see food, large, I'm talking about big quantities, large portions of food, that is when they can actually take their shirt off and kill it all at a go. That is called binge eating. Eating too much or extreme quantities of food at a time. That one won't take you anywhere. The body needs small quantities of food at a time, not binge eating, all right? So at this point, I'll pause for us to get interactive. Tell me about your BMI. Tell me about where you fit the previous assignments or assessments that we did. Tell me about your BMI. Tell me about where you fit. Let's see how best we can talk about it, or we can discuss it. This is for the benefit of anybody who is on this call who was able to do the assignment. If you know your BMI, put it in the chat box. Let's discuss this and let's see how what you can do about it. Yeah, that is if it is on the higher side. Anybody with BMI calculation ready, kindly put it in the chat or comment section. Anyone? BMI. Or maybe I'll start with mine. Okay, so my BMI calculation, I got 24.2 kilograms per meter squared. That's my BMI. And if you look at the table, Dr. Zidane, can you please go to the table? Thank you very much. Yes. So if you look at the categorization, mine was 24.2 kilograms per meter squared. And that puts me at the normal weight. So I'm borderline high, normal weight. Okay. So anything beyond 24.9, that is 25 and above, that puts you at obesity or overweight. We call it pre-obesity or the overweight. Does anybody have their calculation ready now? Okay. So if we don't have any figure now, then we'll proceed to the other part of the slide. All right. Now, we've spoken about dietary consumption in Ghana. We've spoken about a lot of things. Okay. Oh, we have one here. Someone came in with 30.0 kilograms per meter square. Okay. So 30.0 kilograms per meter square, that is on the higher side. Okay. So that means more than pre-obesity or overweight, which is also more than, okay, so that is obesity class 1. Okay, obesity class 1. I mean, a lot can be done to change this. A lot can be done to change this. So stick around whilst we proceed. You'll be able to, pick a thing or two about what to do to maintain a healthy BMI, a healthy weight. All right. Thank you very much. Okay, so we've spoken about diet, we've spoken about non-communicable diseases, we've spoken about all sorts of things. Now let's see how we can link all these things on the table. Okay. So far as the dietary consumption is concerned, let's link it on the table. So far as dietary consumption is concerned, what do we have here? We have some 4 pictures on your screen right now. 4 pictures on your screen right now. We have 2 on my right and 2 on my left. So let's talk about the first picture on my left, on the top. So top left, we have plantain with beans. Is this a typical Ghanaian food? Is this a typical Ghanaian food? So remember the food that we mentioned from typical Ghanaian. If yes, kindly type yes in the comment section or in the chat section. Do you have any of the staples here? Yes, thank you very much. Take a very good look at all the 4 pictures. Do you realize a common similarity here? So the similarity is West Africa, Ghana inclusive. We have a certain trend of eating, a certain meal pattern, and that pattern is the staples are the bulk of the food. So if you interview or interact with any Ghanaian, I mean a typical Ghanaian man, and you ask them what they eat, they are likely going to mention the staple first. So I ate banku, or I ate kenke, or I ate fufu, or I ate rice, or I ate plantain. You never hear I ate beans with plantain. No. So it's mostly the staple first. And this is what we described earlier on as food pattern or diet pattern. Okay, so the staples mostly forming the bulk of the Ghanaian food, which there are better ways to go about it, or there are improved ways to go about it. So the first picture, plantain with beans, it could be better. Remember the things we mentioned from the previous slides, that if you want to eat a healthy life, if you want to eat a healthy way, you need to incorporate food from a certain combination. So this one, you are missing out on some very good amount of vegetables. All right, you are missing out on a very good amount of vegetables, and that makes the food, even though it looks very nice, not too oily, but that's the fact that we don't have vegetables here, takes a lot away from it. Okay, so the next slide, the next picture beneath, that one is a little bit better. The carbohydrate portions or the staples are very small. We have some nice green contomere over there, which is also vegetable. Usually when you talk about vegetable, people think we are talking about cabbages, cucumbers, carrots, lettuce only. All right. We also mean contomere. We also mean garden eggs. We also mean okra. We also mean ayoyo and all those green leafy vegetables. These are all vegetables. Okay. So that picture on the bottom left is a very good presentation here. At least we have some protein, we have some carbohydrates, we have some sauce, vegetables in the form of the contomere sauce. The other picture at my right hand side, I'd like to talk about the picture below. Okay, Francis, we come to your BMI. I'd like to talk about the picture below, the one below, the jollof rice with the egg. You see, this, whoever is going to eat this food is going to get full from eating too much carbohydrate at a time. And that is not how we are, we want individuals to eat. We want people to eat food from all the groups I mentioned earlier. So this guy would have needed some good amount of vegetables there, reduce the plate portion. Remember my plate. Okay, so this guy is doing almost the entire plate filled with jollof. That's typically why a lot of Ghanaian eat. Okay, we do not want that. This doesn't really help. If this proceeds or prolongs for a very long time, it will lead to these non-communicable diseases that we've mentioned. Not today, not tomorrow. This can lead to a compounding effect. All right, let's look at the next slide. Okay, next slide. Yes, thank you. So with the next slide, you can see a typical combination here. Wache with some nice combination. All right. The first one, we have wache with some eggs and some fried plantain and some spaghetti and some avocado. The other one, we have some gari there. We have some chicken, and the other one we have some vegetables. Okay, so all of them look very good. However, there's too much of almost one particular thing here, and that is the carbohydrate. Gari is made from cassava. Okay, it's made from cassava, and that is carbohydrate. Spaghetti is made from wheat. Okay, it's made from wheat flour, and that is also carbohydrate. Fried plantain, that is also carbohydrate. Rice itself from the wache, that is also carbohydrate. Now, if you do this, then it has become too many carbohydrates at a time. All right, you don't need all these combinations for anything. Small quantity of carbohydrates at a time, and that is way better. Also, there's no vegetable here for the first picture on my left. Okay, there's no vegetable here, and that makes it a little bit on the higher side. Okay, let's look at the other picture. We have one here at the top there. We have the double cheese burger. This is one of the trendiest foods in town these days. If you look at the current trends, the way people are eating now, every junction, every corner that you get to these days has some sort of fast food joint which sell this kind of food. I'm talking about double cheeseburger. Okay, and that is a big deal. The cheese is a very good source of saturated fat. Remember, we spoke about saturated fat and how to avoid them. These can lead to hyperlipidemia or make your cholesterol levels go up. We talked about some lean proteins. Okay, so on my right hand side here are some pictures of some lean proteins that you can do, and this can help you greatly. We have some chicken, we have some fish, we have some eggs. These are proteins that are of low fat, low saturated fat. And the one on the bottom left, that one is also a protein from beef, I guess. But this one has a very good quantities of saturated fat. And it is advised that instead of doing the fatty meat, you rather do the less fatty one. Next slide, please. Okay, so we talked about planning your meal. And we spoke entirely about how this meal planning can help you achieve healthy lifestyle. All right. Now, if you plan your meal, you're likely going to eat at least 3 meals. For some people, they eat 5 a day or 4 times a day. And this one may include the mid-morning snack and the evening snacks. Okay. So for breakfast, I prefer, depending on the time you wake up, breakfast is not it's not eaten at a fixed time. It's always dependent on the time you wake up. So if you wake up, let's say at 6 o'clock, your breakfast should be within 2 hours after waking up. All right. So that's the recommendation. That if you wake up at 6 a.m., your breakfast should be within 2 hours after waking up, and that is 8 a.m. Okay, so you shouldn't exceed. So within 2 hours after waking up, that is at most, you shouldn't exceed 8 a.m. You should have eaten your first meal. For lunch, we mostly advise a 5-hourly interval. You should have eaten your next meal from breakfast, 5-hourly interval. So it could be 12, it could be 12:30, it could be 1, okay, but it shouldn't exceed 1. Okay, then you eat your lunch, and then dinner will be between 5:30 to 6:30 p.m. Forgive the typo error, it's supposed to be p.m. All right. So if you do this, if you eat like that, you are likely going to achieve a very healthy lifestyle, in the sense that your body will control the blood sugars very well. You have a well control of your lipids, and this will help you, reduce your risk of getting the non-communicable diseases, which I mentioned earlier on. So in conclusion, the primary prevention is the most effective, affordable method to prevent chronic diseases, also known as non-communicable diseases. That healthy eating positively impacts health outcome across the lifespan. And empirical assessment of dietary patterns of entire diets, therefore, is useful to unravel complex diet disease relationships. Dietary patterns are
All right, I think there's a network issue with our presenter. Thank you very much. Yes, we are almost at the end, and trust me, most of us on this call, maybe not you, but me, I'm at fault and I'm learning a lot, and there are a lot of things I have to do to get things done better, do it in a better way, in a more healthy way, as the expert is advising. At this point, we're going to take a few questions from anyone who is having some questions to ask. Please feel free to ask all your questions in the chat box and in the comment section. Our expert has advised us, he has told us what we need to do. We have heard from the expert. So let's know from you what questions you have that you want answered. He's going to join us back briefly. He's going to join us again. He's reconnecting. So if you have any questions that you want answered from our expert, please put in the chat box. Yes, okay. So somebody has already asked a question, but I'm sure that was already answered during his presentation. That is examples of ideal healthy meals in a week. He taught us about myplate.gov. Myplate.gov will guide you what to eat. Myplate.gov will guide you what to eat. When you follow the myplate.gov, that's half of it should be fruits and vegetables, and a half will be protein, and then the grains, that's the carbohydrates, and then the protein. Trust me, I am a corporate. Trust me, I am at fault here, and I have to admit it. Yes. My BMI is not within the normal range that I expect it to be. That's the truth about it. So yes, I'm learning, and I'm hoping to improve and get better. Our guest speaker is back. So somebody is asking, what are some of the examples of healthy dieting that you can advise us per week? If you can advise us on some healthy dieting, what will you advise?
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So my advice for healthy dieting for the entire week, this one is a very simple one. I do it myself, and it may help you a lot. The breakfast options are mostly the porridges, okay? The porridges and then the grills. These ones are my most go-to breakfast options. So porridges and grills. And then this is eaten between the hours of 6 a.m. and 7:30 a.m. All right, you can do 8 a.m. That's also fine. Depending on the time you wake up. The next meal, so the porridges, let me elaborate a little bit. So my porridges is always with protein, a very good amount of protein. So I do porridges with some low-fat milk. All right, porridges with low-fat milk, a sweetener. So 1 teaspoon of sugar, added sugar, and that's all I need. I don't need more than 1 teaspoon. Okay, so 1 teaspoon will go with about 3 ladles of the porridge. So the porridge may be morikoko, maybe Tom Brown, maybe oatmeal, maybe Winnie Meals, maybe wheat porridge. And then the next meal I'll go for will be the lunch. And this is eaten at 12 o'clock to 1 p.m. And mostly I go for rice-based food. So rice with tomato sauce and some steamed vegetables.
Yeah, network issue at its end, but we are glad that he was
dinner. That's eating most, and that's one I go a little bit.
All right.
Oh, okay. Is it better now?
Yeah, it's better now. Yeah, so please continue.
Okay, sorry. So I was saying that in the evening, I hope you heard me up to a point. Did you hear the lunch portion?
Yes.
Okay, so I was at the evening portion. So the evening ones, mostly I go heavy because I go to the gym, I work out in the evening. So the evening food, I go heavy a little bit. And mostly I'll do fufu or banku or a mutual rice ball with soups. And mostly I have some lean proteins there. So my lean proteins I go for is chicken and fish. And definitely I pop in some egg if I get a chance to. Because of the physical activity I do, I break down a lot of muscles. Okay, and these are replaced by eating high quantities of protein. So if you're not physically active as I do, please don't go eating too much of the protein. And this is my easy go-to, diet plan for the week.
All right, thank you very much. Thank you very much. Any more questions, please drop it in the chat box in the comment section. He has just guided us as to how. And I like an answer you gave. I was going to ask you, what about those who say they don't take breakfast, they don't take dinner, but they just eat heavy lunch? You answered it. But if you can answer it again, those who say, I won't eat breakfast, I won't eat dinner, but I'll just eat heavy lunch. 3 bowls of KK, a big plate of banku, something heavy, plate of rice, and I'm okay. You answered it during the presentation, but some might not have heard. What would be your advice to such people?
Fantastic. So individuals who skip meals, okay, individuals who skip meals and eat at later time of the day, what a lot of times people do called intermittent fasting, I won't recommend you to do that. And here's the reason. The primary source of energy for the body is carbohydrate. That's the body's primary source of energy. Now, when you sleep, nobody wakes up at midnight to go and eat. I mean, unless a special case. So when you sleep, you are technically fasting. Assuming your last meal of the day was around 7 p.m. You are fasting from the time you eat, from 7 p.m. till the time you go to bed, and till the time you wake up. And it's not like during those periods your body has shut down. The body is still working, everything is still, working fine. Okay, maybe at a slower or a slower pace. That being said, it is important that when you wake up, you need to provide nutrition for the body immediately. Reason is that the body has fasted for too long. And they depend and rely on these carbohydrates to produce energy for movements, life processes. Just like I'm talking to you right now, assuming I wake up in the morning, I'll be eating, I couldn't do this. I won't be able to do this. Okay, so the carbohydrates you obtain from eating breakfast will be used to help you perform simple life processes. Now, if you don't eat and you skip this breakfast, this is what is going to happen to you. God has created it in a way that the body won't wait for you to provide nutrition. So if you don't provide nutrition, the body will go and look for alternative. And that is mostly from protein and fat, but fat first before protein. Protein is the last one the body will target. So it goes to fat, it breaks down fat, okay, in the process called catabolism of fat. Now, once fat is broken down, it's used to produce energy for you, and you get some energy to be able to still move around, even though you've not eaten. But it comes with a consequence, okay? Unfortunately, the pathway, the process, the method with which the body does that, breaking down fats to produce energy for you, ends up increasing your LDL cholesterol level. And this will predispose you or increase your risk of getting non-communicable disease. As simple as that. And that is why breakfast is the most important meal of the day, yet not the most elaborate meal of the day. So it may be just 2 ladles of morikoko, you are good to go.
Yes, so by your expert opinion, are you saying that intermittent fasting is not advised?
I won't advise that. I won't advise that for anybody. And the reason is simply by what I have explained. Yes, if you understand the concept of how the body works, okay, metabolism and catabolism or metabolism of food, if you understand this concept, you understand that you don't have to really starve yourself for this long. People who do intermittent fasting, please don't get me wrong, though. People who do intermittent fast actually get results because you trick your body to go and break down fats to lose weight. And mostly the goal is to lose weight, all right? So they do get results, but the side effect is always there for you. I mean, you can get the results, all right, no problem. But you pay the price, and the price is always hefty. For me, it's always it's better for you to choose a solution that is sustainable than one that is not sustainable, because eventually you move off from this intermittent fasting and come back to your normal lifestyle. And probably you gain the weight again.
So what you're trying to say is intermittent fasting, people who do it, they may get the result of losing weight or whatever, but they risk increasing their LDL cholesterol, which is the bad cholesterol. Is that what you're saying?
Fantastic,
Which
Dr.
will bring
Sedoya.
to the non-communicable diseases like hypertension and the rest.
Fantastic, Dr. Sedoya. Exactly as you said.
After some time, they're going to stop the intermittent fasting and revert back to their normal eating anyway, which is, so I get your point. Now, somebody is asking, is honey like recommended? Honey.
Honey, okay, thank you very much. Actually, that's one of my research areas. That's my thesis. I did a thesis on the effects of honey, white and brown sugar on glucose levels and lipid profiles using experimental rat models. And the whole objective of the research work was to find out, I mean, there were undocumented and unsubstantiated claims that honey is better than brown sugar, which is also better than white sugar. So we wanted to probe and find out that this honey that we are championing, and you hear all sorts of adverts on radio and TV that honey is this, honey is good, it cures diabetes, it reduces your risk of cancer and all sorts of things. Is it true? So we investigated it, we put it to a test, and guess what? The results that came out after a 90-day, trial or 90-day study period. It was a chronic study because the animals were on their normal diet. At the same time, they were eating, in addition to the normal diet, honey or white sugar or brown sugar. We had 3 different groups of animals for that matter, and those that were on none of them. That was the control group. Okay, they were just eating their standard normal food. Okay, so those on the sugar actually we calculate a quantity and dissolve it in about 1 milliliter of water and gavage the animals. So this is a scientific process of forcefully making the animals ingest the solution. So we did it for sugar, we did it for honey, we did it for brown sugar for 90 days. And the results was that blood samples were taken to the lab and we ran the test. And we saw that honey did exactly the same thing as brown sugar would do, same thing as white sugar would do. So I mean, it's answered the question, and it's very clear. Sometimes we go for ward rounds, okay, and you find patients on admission who are diabetic, and they have honey on their side bed, and you ask them, why do you have honey here? They'll tell you that, I'm told it's better. I'm told honey is a healthier option, and these are the undocumented, unsubstantiated claims I'm talking about. So therefore, the research work was to debunk, investigate and probe further to understand the concept of these natural sweeteners on the biochemical parameters.
All right. Thank you very much. Somebody is asking, what about those of us who run shifts, especially long night shifts? You are at work between 6 p.m. to 9 a.m. and asleep between 10 a.m. to 5 p.m. What would be an ideal meal plan?
Dr. Sedoya, come back to the time again. I didn't get that part.
So the people are running long night shifts. That is, they are at work from 6 p.m. to 9 a.m. Okay. And then they are asleep between 10 a.m. and 5 p.m. What would be the ideal meal plan for them?
Okay, thank you very much. These people, I call them special case. Special case because they don't follow the circadian principle. All right. Their bedtime is actually work time, and work time is actually bedtime. So they don't follow the normal circadian principle, like I said. Okay. So these people, what I would advise is that eat according to your working hours. The time you are working is actually the time you need the food. All right. So yours will tend slightly. So for instance, if you start work in the evening, 6 p.m. to 9 a.m., you said in the morning, that's the following day. It means that eating one meal, okay, in the evening to take you up to the following day wouldn't be enough, given that you'll be working with it. And whilst you are working with it, your body is breaking down the food, using it to produce energy for you. In no time, you will consume the food, you will finish the food, the body will utilize the food, assimilate the nutrients in no time, more than someone who eats and just after 2 hours or so go to bed. Okay, so your energy requirement is on the higher side compared to this person at that material time. And therefore, it is recommended that you may have 2 meals in that space of your work, your night shift. So you may have 2 meals. You can have the first one around 6 p.m. or 5 p.m.
And then the next one, about 4-hourly or 5-hourly interval, you can eat again. So the advice is for you to prep your meals from the house, bring it to work, okay? Because at that time, I'm not sure you are going to get food anywhere tomorrow, unless you are working in a place where they provide the food for you, like a cafeteria, a work, canteen or something like that. Other than that, please bring food from the house, okay, and make it available to yourself. Eat it 5-hourly interval, and then you'll be good.
All right. So my next question to you is: there are people who say because they want to lose weight, they are doing portion control. So sometimes they want to eat twice a day. Would you advise that? And what kind of meal plan would you have for those people?
Dr. Sedo here, I love these questions. See, this kind of questions really make me happy. You know why? It means that the people or the person who is asking this question is following and is getting the concept gradually. All right. So 2 meals a day. All right. You want to cut down carbohydrate. You want to cut down calories. So you are doing 2 meals a day. In some way it may be okay. In some way it may not be okay. This is all dependent on the individual's energy requirement. And this is why I say that if you are eating 3 times, assuming your normal meal you used to eat is 3 times a day, and you switch to 2 times a day, there will be a deficit. All right, there will be a deficit. And that deficit means that you are depriving your body of some adequate nutrients, which it actually needs. All right. And when there's a deficit, you are likely trying or going to make up for it in the next meal. You're going to you try and catch up in your next meal. So assuming you eat breakfast, you don't eat lunch, dinner will always almost be like you've not eaten the entire day. And that's not what you want, because you end up pumping too much at a time. So it's better, it's advisable that small quantity at a time is the way to go. Even if you are not hungry, your body will be able to lose weight, and you try to skip meals. Irregular blood sugar can affect or slow down your weight gain. Go, consistent. You stick to it, even if you are hungry or not. So far as it is your meal time, you stop whatever it is you are doing. Even if it is 2 tablespoons of rice you've eaten, it's okay. It will keep you going till your next meal.
So somebody wants clarification from your research. You found out that honey, brown sugar, white sugar, there's no difference. How about sweetness?
You mean the artificial sweetness?
Yes.
Okay. So the artificial sweetness, so in the past we used to recommend them. Until recently, WHO came up with a recommendation that no amount or quantities of artificial sweetener is okay or good for the human body. So now I can't really recommend artificial sweetener for anybody again. So they mentioned a group of them: saccharins, aspartame, and some other group of, I think there were 6 of them. So I remember these 2 very well because they are very common. So the saccharins and aspartames, the recommendation is we should resist or refrain from them, and they are not too good for the human body.
All right. So your general advice is small at a time, instead of saying I'm taking one off and doing bulk of 2. It's not the best. Doing small.
I tell you,
Charlie,
fantastic.
Today you're just on mute. Today you're just on mute like that. Hey. All right. Thank you for that. Right now, our friend who asked about the running the shift system, she's asking. So the days that the person is off and they go back to their normal eating, would it not have any long-term effect on them?
You see, big congratulations to whoever asked this question. I mean, the person is really following the combo. The person is following the chart. You understand? Yes. If you come back to your normal, schedule, okay, after night shift, long hours night shift, what will happen is that your body will have to readjust. You have to readjust by providing the meals like as you would have provided for the normal shift or normal meal times. Okay, so assuming you did let's say 4 days night, and now you are doing 3 days normal working day. Let's say where normal working day means morning to afternoon, morning to evening. Okay, your eating habits or pattern will change to fit your new, work shift. So you don't continue with whatever it is you were doing previously. Otherwise, there will be a deficit, there will be problem. Because this time you'll be sleeping at night, okay, and working at daytime, compared to previously you were working at night and sleeping at daytime. So that's will bring about these slight changes.
Thank you very much. Is there any other question? I must see there's a lot of things that, and I like the fact about the honey, the white sugar, and the brown sugar. There's this fuss about brown sugar is better than this, the honey is the best among all of them. You know, all these things have been, like you said, unsubstantiated. They have all not been, confirmed in the literature. And I'm glad that you actually did a study yourself as a professional, as an expert, and you came up with the fact that the honey, brown sugar, white sugar, they are all the same. It's just for psychological satisfaction that you may think honey is better than this. They say it's from a natural source, blah, blah, blah. All those things are just, And it's also good you've made it clear that sweetness are no more recommended, ideally, generally, all right? So somebody say we are just wasting money on honey, eh? Yes, you see, sometimes we have these grandma tales, old tales that we hear of people saying, good, and we just go according to it without finding any scientific, evidence to support it. But this day we are in evidence-based practice. So that is why on this channel, when we get a chance, we want to speak to the expert. Not what, if you ask me that question, I would have told you honey is better. Because I'm not an expert in that field. If you ask me, I say honey is the best. Because that's what I've learned over the years. I've heard over the years. But he is an expert. That is even his area of research. And he knows better. Somebody says, it means I just have to continue eating my white sugar like that. It is cheaper.
Okay, so Dr. Fede, I want to touch on that one. So that one being said, it doesn't make, it doesn't mean that the fact that they all produce the same result doesn't mean that white sugar is still a healthy thing or better thing to do. Okay, it's simple refined carbohydrates. Already, during the research, the thesis that I did, I came across some shocking findings, okay? And that one includes that the recommendation for added sugar intake is we are supposed to eat 10% of our recommended energy, intake for the entire day should come from sugars, okay? So it shouldn't exceed 10%. That was the recommendation. So assuming you are on a 2,000 kilocalorie diet for the entire day, the quantity of which you are supposed to consume from sugar shouldn't exceed 200 kilocalories. Now, take that bottle of sugar sweetened beverage by you. Check the calories over there. You realize that just by drinking one bottle of sugar sweetened beverage, you have actually overconsumed your recommended intake of sugar for an entire day. And that is not the only sugar this person will eat. This person will also, have some sugar bread, will have some sweetened yogurt, will have some pastries, which has some sugar in it. And these are all accumulated sugar, okay? It doesn't mean only sugar we add on the table, okay? So sugar that exists in foods that are already processed. And trust me, my finding was, guess what? I sampled 10 Hausa cocoa sellers. At the time, I bought 1 cedi of cocoa. I mean, now you don't sell cocoa 1 cedi, right? So I bought porridge, 1 cedi worth of porridge, 1 Ghana cedi worth of porridge. Usually they put the sugar inside the porridge in the rubber. So I told them to tie the sugar separately for me. So I sampled 10 sugar from different, porridge sellers. And this is one of the top breakfast options for Ghanaians. Okay. So I took this sample to the lab, put it on a food scale, and guess what? Averagely, I was getting about 32 grams of sugar for the porridge I bought in the morning for the 10 days. So average, so some exceeded the 32, some were 39, some were 37, others were 30. So average, I got around 32 grams of sugar. Now, 32 grams of sugar, once again, back to the recommended intake. You realize that just the cocoa alone, the quantity of sugar you are eating from the cocoa alone is just way too much and beyond the recommended intake. And therefore, if you want to, avoid honey, because I said it's the same, and stick to your sugar because it's cheaper, fair enough. But please stick to the recommended intake. Otherwise, you do yourself.
Last question. The person is asking about our religious lifestyle, that we are advised that fasting is good for our health. What would you say about that? Where people fast for religious purposes? What would be your comment?
Okay, Dr. Celia, thank you very much. This one day, I'll say give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar. All right. So from the health point of view, that's where I can advise. So if you fast, you're likely going to break down lipids, as simple as that, because mostly fasting takes a long time, from morning to a certain period or a certain time of the day. And that means that a lot of times people who fast skip breakfast. Okay, they skip breakfast. So like whatever example reason for the fasting is, whatever religious reason the fasting is for, I cannot say much about that. What I can say is that fasting increases or will increase your LDL cholesterol level, putting you at risk of getting non-communicable disease.
All right, thank you very much. Somebody is asking, what should I add to my cocoa to make it edible? Since you are saying the cocoa, the sugar they give us is a lot.
Yeah, so like I said, that is 39 grams of sugar. So 39 grams. Okay, so if you use the recommended intake, the 200 kilocalories, that's about 25, 22 grams of sugar, or 25 grams of sugar. So I mean, if you want to, I didn't say stop eating sugar. Please eat your sugar. Stick to the recommended intake. Okay. So remember when I used my example as some of the food I eat for breakfast, the porridges, I said I use 1 teaspoon of sugar. I didn't say 1 tablespoon. You see the tablespoon the Ajia used to fetch the cocoa, the sugar for your cocoa. That is about a tablespoon. And they fetch about 3 or 4 of them. I'm saying you put a teaspoon for about every 3 ladles of porridge you eat. That is just fine. That will do for you.
I have repented. I have repented as well. The sugar there, we eat them too much. The sugar there.
Oh, Dr. Zeria, and let me add this one. I forgot. So okay. Another trend is these days people consume food with their main meals with sugar sweetened beverages. Have you seen that trend?
Yes.
So it started with some adverts by one of these, sugar sweetening companies. Yeah, I want to mention their name. And, they promoted, eating your main meals with their product. Now, what happens there is that people tend to make it or normalize it that, okay, now if you buy rice, you should add sugar sweetening berry. If you buy jollof rice, wache, whatever, sugar sweetening, you should push it down. You understand? That's the term, to push it down. Trust me, that is too much carbohydrates now. If you do this, you won't end there. Trust me, this person would have eaten some sugar bread, previously before the wache, which he pushed down with this sugar sweetening beverage. And that is just too much. The best way to go about this one is to just go with your normal water. That is the best thing you can ever give to your human body. Water can push down food like sugar sweetened beverage would do.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. This is timely. This is accurate. This is best. Trust me. Some of us we do it. We are eating and we have some, some fruit juice or some chill drink by the side, and just to push it instead of normal water. I thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We appreciate you. Time is fast spent. At this point, I just want all of us to join me to say a big thank you to our expert, Mr. David Kwame Tufo, for expatiating on everything. If for nothing at all, we all need to remember that myplate.gov, where half of the plate is supposed to be fruit and vegetables, which I am at fault of, and then half of should be the carbohydrates and then the protein. All right, for me, the carbohydrate and protein, I do that one, but the vegetables, I am being very honest here. So we are learning and I have to improve. Of course, also eating with chilled drinks and all that, as in sweet drinks, we have to watch that one and just use normal water. That is best. And the number of spoons of sugar we fetch into our beverages, I have to also watch that, because these things compounds into something that I wouldn't want. And the part that I like best is about this crave that is coming about intermittent fasting. You will lose the weight, but you end up increasing your cholesterol level, which you don't want. But the last thing I wanted to touch on is ketogenic diet, keto diet. What's your comment on that? It's also trending now.
Sorry, I missed that part. The question. Can you please repeat it?
Keto diet.
Ketogenic diet. Oh, okay. So ketogenic diet mostly it's a combination of high protein, high fat diets, and then they cut down on carbohydrates. Okay, so that is also similar to fasting. Okay, so both ketogenic diet and intermittent fasting, the whole goal is to cut down on carbohydrate intake. All right, to trick the body to go and use other, other substrates to produce this energy. So ketogenic diets, equally people do it, they end up increasing, losing the weight that they are looking for. But once again, because people who eat ketogenic diet are on high quantities of protein, high quantities of oils, usually they do a lot of the medium chain triglycerides, the MCT oils. Okay, so if they finish their ketogenic diet, they do get results. Once again, as for the results, you get, but you will always end up with something. And Dr. Sedo here, both of us are clinicians, and we cannot account to it that when you want to stage an intervention for a patient, sometimes there are risks attached to the intervention. We weigh the risk versus the benefits. If the benefit is much more than the risk, then we go for it. So intermittent fasting, yes, you get results. That's a benefit. Also, there's a very good amount of risk attached to it, and that is your LDL cholesterol going up.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. David, for educating us, educating me, and I hope educating everyone who gets to watch this recording. The recording will be made available on the YouTube channel a few minutes after we got off this call. I will advise you to take your time. You listen. He took his time and went into every part of the topic under discussion, and I have learned a lot personally. If you have also learned a lot,